Hey folks, welcome to Interpret Nation. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Gamora #1, and I'll be doing in-depth sort of panel analysis and unpacking why certain pictures, certain frames and paneling styles and transitions contribute to what I guess the theme is. I guess the theme was about misogynism, about ideology, about oppression, especially gender-based oppression, and in this video I'm going to talk about why some of the pictures mean that. So let's get into it. Before I start off looking at the panels, I think I should recap quickly to those who haven't watched the previous video what we're doing here. Real quick, Gamora #1, I talked about Gamora meaning social outcast, Nebula meaning those with skewed vision or wrong ideologies, and they're both daughters of Thanos, which in Thanos means immortal, so kind of it reads like a sentence saying there'll always be those born out of immortality, always coming into existence, who will be cast out, and those who cast out. And what's happening here in the plot is Gamora is off to go and avenge the genocide of her people, the Zenhuberians, which I also explained in the previous video. To me kind of means those with self-cultivated confidence or hubris without, there are people who are confident in themselves but don't look for trouble with other people. It's kind of to say that the genocide that happened to them, they weren't asking for, it was cast on them unfairly. That's what I would say that means. So getting into this, the first panel I'd like to look at, obviously is the opening one. This one, to me, obvious references to female abuse, to physical abuse of females. There's a lot that her body language says. She obviously wants us to know that she is being abused. You can see the rings, there's rings around her eyes. I don't know if that's just because of her race. I don't see any other depictions of Gamora like this, but in what I've seen. But this makes me think of somebody who's been beaten and given black eyes. And she lies down like somebody who has been beaten of their wool. Obviously, Thanos looking big and looming. To me, this is an obvious reference to domestic abuse. And then in the last section of the frame, you can see something that sort of paints a picture of what certain women, especially independent women who are aware of their right to power in patriarchal societies. You can see that kind of entrapment, the overpowering experience of utterly misogynistic society, how certain women, or how women in general, I think, experience that when they're limited and overwhelmed with power. This is what the last frame references to me. Also, it's a reflective picture in this panel. They're showing us the reflection of a picture, which is kind of, to me, a allegorical way to say this is what we are reflecting in the comic book itself. The comic book itself is portraying a reflection of something else, and I think this something else is misogynistic society. Moving on to the next one. This scene opens on a planet called Moord, and it's in the palace of the Badoon Royale. Now, this sentence is actually another allegorical reference to the respect paid, I think, by society, or how society should view utterly misogynistic society. Moord, I believe, is a Germanic word. For one, I know it's a Afrikaans word. Afrikaans is a weird little language we speak in South Africa, and it is Germanic in origin. But moord in Afrikaans means murder, and I'm pretty sure it comes from Germanic stems of the language. Place of Badoon Royal. Badoon, according to my research, is an Urdu word which means without, or more literally sans, when you're without something. So if I had to read this description of the frame, of the location, it would to me mean murder planet in the palace without royalty, with no royalty. And it's obvious that they're calling the world that these people are the rulers of. They're calling that a murderous planet where people are killed and there's no respect for life. And because of that, they are cast in the view of not being royal but being in charge. So they're kind of oppressors. They've not been granted royalty in this naming. And then obviously the scene depicted here, the panel happening in front of us here, is obviously about misogynism. I mean, they are women enslaved, they're in chains, literally, they look like concubines or some kind of subservient subspecies oppressed here by the Badoon. And again, utterly misogynistic. These people in the frame at the bottom, we can see that they're shocked to see that this person has had female offspring, because they don't even know what a daughter is. They have probably been, for instance, murdering the female counterpart of their species, or maybe their species, maybe something like that. I don't know how you could not have a female in the species, assumedly, but obviously this idea that they do not even know what a daughter is as royalty, perhaps, is utterly misogynistic to me in its expression. Again, there's something also interesting about the enslavement of the females, quote unquote, in this frame. What's happening here is we see the front of this is that it is humanoid or human, Homo sapien in origin people, females being enslaved. This is the forefront, but in the back we can see some extraterrestrial, to us and to apparently the Badoon people, we see some enslaved, we assume, is females. Now, the reason this is interesting is because this is actually an expression, I think, of what it really means to be misogynistic and to gender-based prejudice. It's just a kind of racism, because imagine the situation here. These people are from one planet, they kidnap beings from another planet, and because they identify those beings as female, they then cast their own social oppression on those females. So not only are they assuming what their idea of gender is, they're assuming that it is the same for those people, and on top of that, because they assume that, the added little extra benefit is that they get to oppress you because of that. So this is a great, I think, depth of expression, just in my view, of what misogynism is really like. It is actually just racism wrapped in some kind of nonsensical reason. But yeah, let's look at the next frame. In the next frame, we can see the new prince being crowned, and Gamora sneaking around. She's about to murder him. Again, references to misogynism, I think, here are the veil that Gamora wears and the veils we see out on other certain members of the public. I think this is sort of a reference to veiling laws, which were, I think, basically when misogynism started becoming a codified law. This was one of the first signs that society became aggressively and outwardly expressively misogynistic, because they started writing laws that, as I recall, the earliest forms were to say women have to wear veils to appear in public. If anybody knows this history, I'd be happy to be corrected on it, but I think that they're referencing these events in the history of misogynism, and this is why they put it in the comic book. Another reference to misogynism is the way that Thanos is referring to Nebula in the one panel. He actually says to her that she's not even considered a person, she was upcycled, as I've mentioned in the previous video. This is also a way to look at misogynism. Because you're allowed to treat women as subservient because of the misogynism, you're essentially saying to them they are less than sentient, they are less than human. You are considering them essentially sub or non-human, as Thanos considers Nebula. The next frame that's interesting to me, of course, the panels are all beautifully done, but just speaking to my theme, I would say the next one is the juxtaposition of Gamora slaying the prince, delivering the final blows, and Nebula on the other side going down a sort of spiral staircase, arguing with Thanos. Now, the juxtaposition here is a way that they are using Gamora and Nebula as characters, as a medium to compete ideologies, or to show you the difference in ideologies, in abusive situations. They're showing you how different, I think, they're showing you different expressions of one abuse and the other one independence. So here on the one side, Gamora is dominating the prince. She is just wrecking and slaying. He is utterly at her mercy and helpless to defend himself. This is the picture of a female dominating a male, delivering the blows of justice. The other side is Nebula arguing, spiraling down, a spiral down argument, maddening spiraling argument with Thanos, in which she's pleading for him to consider her as valuable as Gamora. Now, I like this sort of expression because it's to say that you should not plead for men for your for them to assign you value. You should take it. This is what they're, I think, calling forth, is like, if you're going to be like Nebula, you're going to go down a spiral and it's not going to end up anywhere useful. This is not how you do it. This is not how you reach your power, your place of power. What you do, essentially what Gamora is doing, and you just slay. This power is not something that, I think they're trying to say, power is not something that you just wait for, you ask for. Power is something that you take. It is literally the ability for you to take the power, I would say. I think that's going to be it for this video. There's a bunch more stuff I'd like to talk about in this issue. So many loaded frames. I haven't even gotten to the really juicy stuff yet, I think. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit the like, subscribe, and comment if you want to let me know what you think. Interpret Nation out.